Imagine being served with legal papers that felt more like a ransom note. Like the video, tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe for more content like this. The humid air of Charleston, South Carolina, hung heavy as Amelia stared at the crisp white envelope. Inside, a demand so audacious it made her usually steady hands tremble. Her ex-husband, Daniel, a successful architect, had been served with a child support request that was, in her own private estimation, bordering on the absurd. Their daughter, Lily, was a bright and well-adjusted 10-year-old. Amelia had a good job as a marketing manager. They had shared custody, and Daniel had always been generous, even after their amicable divorce 5 years ago. "This has to be a mistake," Amelia muttered, rereading the figures. The amount requested would essentially require Daniel to liquidate assets. It was more than double what any reasonable calculation would suggest. She picked up her phone, her thumb hovering over Daniel's number. They hadn't spoken directly in a few months, communicating mostly through their shared calendar app regarding Lily's schedule. 10 minutes later, Daniel answered on the third ring, his voice calm but with an undercurrent of surprise. "Amelia, is everything all right?" "All right," she scoffed, though she tried to keep her tone even. "Daniel, have you seen this?" She didn't need to specify. There was a brief pause. "Yes, my lawyer forwarded it this morning." I'm at a loss for words." "At a loss for words?" "Daniel, this is insane." "What are you thinking?" Amelia's composure finally cracked. "Thinking? Amelia, I didn't file this." The denial hit her like a splash of cold water. "Then who did?" "Your lawyer, apparently. The paperwork came from their office." Amelia's mind raced. She had consulted a lawyer, Ms. Albright, a well-respected family law attorney, a few weeks ago. Lily had mentioned wanting to join a prestigious traveling soccer team, and the costs were significant. Amelia had wanted to explore her options, see if Daniel would be willing to contribute more. But this was beyond anything they had discussed. I need to call Ms. Albright," Amelia stammered, feeling a knot of anxiety tighten in her stomach. "Good luck," Daniel said dryly. "Let me know what she says." He hung up. Amelia called Ms. Albright's office immediately. Her paralegal, Brenda, informed her that Ms. Albright was in court and wouldn't be available until later in the afternoon. The wait felt like an eternity. Amelia paced her living room, replaying her conversation with Ms. Albright. She remembered mentioning the soccer team, the rising costs of everything, but she distinctly recalled saying she wanted a fair agreement, something that reflected Daniel's ability to pay and Lily's needs. 5 hours later, finally, Ms. Albright returned her call. Her voice was brisk and professional. "Amelia, thank you for your patience. I understand you have some concerns about the child support request we filed." "Concerns? Ms. Albright, this isn't what we discussed. The amount you're demanding, it's exorbitant." There was a beat of silence on the other end. "Based on the information you provided regarding Daniel's income and assets, as well as Lily's extracurricular activities and future educational needs, we formulated a figure that we believe is appropriate. But I never said I wanted that much. I just wanted to explore options for help with the soccer expenses." Amelia's voice rose in frustration. "Amelia, it's always best to aim high in these negotiations. We can always come down, but it's much harder to go up." "But this isn't negotiating, Ms. Albright. This is going to alienate Daniel. He's a good father. We have a good co-parenting relationship. I don't want to jeopardize that. Amelia, you need to think about your daughter's future. Daniel has the means to provide a very comfortable life for her. Why shouldn't she have it?" Amelia felt a wave of unease wash over her. Ms. Albright's tone was so confident, so assured. Had she somehow miscommunicated her intentions? Had she sounded greedier than she meant to? 2 weeks later, the legal proceedings moved forward with alarming speed. Daniel, understandably, had hired a formidable lawyer of his own, a sharp woman named Ms. Dubois. The initial court hearing was scheduled. Amelia sat in the sterile waiting room, her stomach churning. She had tried to talk to Daniel again, to explain that she hadn't intended for things to escalate this way, but his hurt and anger were palpable. "Amelia, I trusted you," he had said, his voice tight with disappointment. "We had an agreement. We were friends. And now this. It feels like a betrayal." Ms. Albright emerged from the courtroom, her expression unreadable. "They're requesting financial disclosures from both of you. We'll need detailed records of your income, expenses, and assets." Amelia nodded numbly. The reality of the situation was starting to sink in. She had opened a Pandora's box, and she wasn't sure how to close it. The weeks that followed were filled with paperwork, phone calls with Ms. Albright's office, and a growing sense of dread. Daniel's lawyer was thorough and relentless. She questioned Amelia's spending habits, her income, even the necessity of Lily's participation in such an expensive soccer league. Amelia felt like she was under a microscope, her entire life being scrutinized. One afternoon, while reviewing a particularly invasive list of questions from Ms. Dubois, Amelia's phone rang. It was Sarah, one of her closest friends. "Hey, you okay?" Sarah's voice was gentle. "I heard things are getting messy with Daniel." Amelia sighed. "Messy is an understatement. I never wanted this, Sarah. I just wanted a little extra help with Lily's soccer. And now it's a full-blown legal battle. Daniel is furious, and honestly, I don't blame him. This whole thing has gotten completely out of hand. Did you talk to Ms. Albright about maybe adjusting the demands?" Sarah asked tentatively. Amelia hesitated. "I tried. She keeps telling me it's a strategy. But I'm starting to think it's backfiring." 5 months later, the trial date loomed. Amelia had spent countless hours preparing, gathering documents, and trying to make sense of the legal jargon. Her relationship with Daniel remained strained. They communicated only about Lily, their exchanges brief and formal. The easy camaraderie they once shared was gone, replaced by a wall of resentment. One evening, Lily came home from soccer practice looking unusually subdued. "Mom," she asked, her voice small, "did you and Dad have a fight?" Amelia knelt down and took her daughter's hands. "We're having some disagreements, sweetie. But it has nothing to do with you. But Mrs. Davison, Michael's mom, said that you're asking Dad for a lot of money. She said it might mean he has to sell his house. Is that true?" Lily's eyes were wide with worry. Amelia's heart sank. The whispers had already reached Lily. She had tried so hard to shield her daughter from the conflict, but it was impossible. "Sweetheart," Amelia said gently, "Dad and I are working things out. Don't worry, everything will be okay." But even as she said the words, she wasn't sure if they were true. The day of the trial arrived, gray and overcast, mirroring Amelia's mood. She sat at the plaintiff's table with Ms. Albright, feeling a wave of nausea. Across the aisle, Daniel sat with Ms. Dubois, his expression grim. The courtroom was filled with an air of tense anticipation. The judge, a stern-faced woman named Judge Thompson, called the case. Ms. Albright presented her opening arguments, painting a picture of Daniel's wealth and Lily's deserving needs. Ms. Dubois countered, highlighting Daniel's consistent financial support in the past and questioning the necessity of Amelia's exorbitant demands. As the trial progressed, Amelia listened to the testimony, a growing sense of unease settling in her stomach. Ms. Albright's strategy of aiming high was starting to feel less like a clever tactic and more like a reckless gamble. Daniel's lawyer skillfully presented evidence of his past generosity and Amelia's comfortable financial situation. She even brought up the fact that Amelia had recently taken a solo vacation to the Caribbean, implying that her financial needs weren't as dire as she claimed. During a recess, Amelia pulled Ms. Albright aside. "I don't like how this is going," she said, her voice low. "It's making me look greedy. And it's hurting Lily." Ms. Albright patted her arm dismissively. "Trust the process, Amelia. We're doing fine." But Amelia didn't feel fine. She felt a profound sense of regret. She had let her desire for a little extra financial security spiral into a full-blown legal war, damaging her relationship with her ex-husband and, more importantly, upsetting her daughter. When they reconvened, Judge Thompson addressed Amelia directly. "Ms. Lawson, I have reviewed the financial documents and listened to the testimony. While Mr. Nolan appears to be a man of means, the amount of child support you are requesting seems excessive, given the current custody arrangement and your own financial stability." Amelia's heart pounded in her chest. This was it. "Your Honor," Amelia began, her voice trembling slightly, I would like to address the court." Ms. Albright shot her a warning look, but Amelia ignored it. She turned to face Daniel, her gaze filled with remorse. "Daniel," she said, her voice clear despite her nerves, "I am so sorry. This whole thing, it got out of hand. I never intended for it to go this far. The amount my lawyer requested, it wasn't really what I wanted." Daniel looked at her, his expression a mixture of surprise and disbelief. "I was worried about Lily's soccer expenses," Amelia continued, "but I let that worry turn into something unreasonable. You've always been a good father, and you've always been generous. I should have talked to you directly, instead of letting things escalate like this." She turned back to the judge. "Your Honor, I would like to withdraw the current child support request. I am willing to work with Mr. Nolan on a more reasonable agreement, one that truly reflects Lily's needs." A stunned silence filled the courtroom. Ms. Albright looked as though she might faint. Ms. Dubois' eyebrows were raised in surprise. Daniel simply stared at Amelia, his expression unreadable. Judge Thompson looked at Amelia with a hint of understanding in her eyes. "Ms. Lawson, are you certain about this?" "Yes, Your Honor," Amelia said firmly. "I am." The judge nodded. "Very well. We will take a brief recess to allow the parties to discuss this." As the courtroom buzzed with murmurs, Daniel slowly rose from his chair and walked over to Amelia. He stopped a few feet away, his eyes searching hers. "Amelia," he said quietly, "why?" Amelia took a deep breath. "Because this isn't worth it, Daniel. Not the money, not the fighting, not the way it's making Lily feel. I made a mistake. A big one, a flicker of something, perhaps understanding, perhaps forgiveness, crossed Daniel's face. So, what happens now?" "Now," Amelia said, a small smile finally gracing her lips, "we talk. Like we used to." The outrageous demand had indeed been instantly regretted, but not in the way anyone had initially expected. The regret wasn't about needing the money, it was about the cost of the demand itself, the damage to relationships, the stress on their daughter, and the realization that sometimes, the most valuable things in life can't be measured in dollars and cents. The recess felt both incredibly long and fleetingly short. Daniel followed Amelia out into the hallway, his expression still guarded but less hostile than it had been moments before. Ms. Albright trailed behind them, her face a mask of disbelief and annoyance. Ms. Dubois observed the exchange with a professional curiosity. "I mean it, Daniel," Amelia said, her voice earnest. "I was wrong. Ms. Albright, she encouraged me to ask for that amount, and I went along with it, thinking it was just a starting point for negotiation. But it felt wrong from the beginning. Especially when Lily started asking questions." Daniel nodded slowly. "I appreciate you saying that, Amelia. It hasn't been easy. Lily's been worried, and honestly, so have I." "I know," Amelia said, her gaze dropping. "And I'm truly sorry for that. So, what kind of agreement are you thinking about?" Daniel asked, getting straight to the point. "Something fair," Amelia replied. "Something that helps with Lily's soccer, yes, but nothing that would put you in a difficult financial position. We can look at the actual costs, maybe split them, like we've always done with other extracurriculars." Daniel considered this for a moment. "That sounds reasonable. More like the Amelia I used to know." A hint of a smile touched his lips. Ms. Albright cleared her throat loudly. "Amelia, are you sure about this? We had a strong case." Amelia turned to her lawyer, her expression firm. "Yes, Ms. Albright, I'm sure. I want to do what's right for Lily, and for our family." "This isn't the way." Ms. Albright sighed, shaking her head slightly. "Very well, Amelia, if that's your decision." Ms. Dubois approached them. "Mr. Nolan, Ms. Lawson, are you making progress?" "Yes, Ms. Dubois," Daniel replied. We're discussing a more amicable resolution." "Excellent," Ms. Dubois said smoothly. "Perhaps we can draft a revised agreement for the judge to review." And just like that, the tension in the hallway began to dissipate. The outrageous demand, the months of legal wrangling, the strained relationship, it all started to feel like a bad dream that was finally fading away. 2 days later, Lily bounded into the kitchen, a bright smile on her face. "Mom, Dad said I can still go to the soccer tournament in Atlanta." Amelia's heart swelled with relief. "That's wonderful, sweetie. We're both going to support you." "Really?" Lily's eyes widened. "Both of you?" "Yes," Amelia confirmed. "Your dad and I talked, and we're going to figure things out together, like we always used to." Lily threw her arms around Amelia's waist. "Thank you, Mom. You're the best." Later that evening, Daniel called Amelia. "Lily's thrilled about the tournament," he said, his voice sounding lighter than it had in months. "I'm glad," Amelia replied. "Thank you, Daniel." "For what?" "For being willing to talk, to forgive me. I know I put you in a tough position." "We both made mistakes, Amelia," Daniel said. "The important thing is that we're trying to fix them. For Lily." The conversation was easy, comfortable, like their old chats used to be. They talked about Lily's soccer schedule, her schoolwork, and even a little bit about their own lives. It felt like a weight had been lifted, a wall had been torn down. 1 week later, Amelia and Daniel appeared in court again, this time with a jointly drafted agreement. Ms. Albright looked resigned, while Ms. Dubois offered a polite nod to Amelia. Judge Thompson reviewed the document carefully. This appears to be a fair and reasonable agreement, reflecting the needs of the child and the financial capabilities of both parents. Ms. Lawson, Mr. Nolan, are you both in agreement? Yes, Your Honor, they both replied. Very well, Judge Thompson said, striking her gavel. The revised child support agreement is hereby approved. As they left the courtroom, Amelia and Daniel walked side by side in comfortable silence. Coffee? Daniel asked, gesturing towards a nearby cafe. Amelia smiled. I'd like that. They sat at a small table outside, the Charleston sunshine warm on their faces. They talked about everything and nothing, the awkwardness that had defined their recent interactions completely gone. You know, Daniel said, taking a sip of his coffee, for a while there, I wasn't sure if we'd ever be able to have a conversation like this again. Me neither, Amelia admitted. I let my worries about Lily's future cloud my judgment. I forgot that the best thing we can give her is our love and support, working together. It's a good reminder, Daniel agreed. Money isn't everything. Amelia nodded. The past few months had been a harsh but valuable lesson. She had demanded an outrageous amount of child support, driven by a mix of genuine concern and perhaps a touch of wanting more than she truly needed. But the instant she saw the damage it was causing, the strain on her relationship with Daniel, the worry in Lily's eyes, she regretted it deeply. The potential financial gain was simply not worth the emotional cost. In the end, it wasn't the hefty sum she had initially sought that brought her peace. It was the renewed connection with her ex-husband, the relief in her daughter's smile, and the understanding that true co-parenting was about communication, compromise, and putting their child's well-being above all else. The outrageous demand had backfired, leading not to financial windfall, but to a profound realization about what truly mattered. The road ahead wouldn't be without its challenges, but they would face them together, as a family, albeit a divorced one. And that, Amelia realized, was worth more than any amount of money. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notification to be the first to know when the next story drops.